आनंदमे साई नाममे अद्भुतमे साई गीतमे अखंडमे ज्योतिर्मयमे अखंडमे ज्योतिर्मयमे सुंदरमे साई रूपमे अति सुंदर में साई रूप में आनंद में साई नाम में. Dear Swami, loving pranams at your lotus feet. Brothers and sisters, Sai Ram. By Swami's infinite mercy and grace, we'll continue to explore the grandeur and beauty of the Bharatiya culture. The previous episode, we spoke about the concept of Paraspara Prema, which Bhagawan speaks about, and also reminded ourselves of the basic tenet of the Bharatiya culture, which is one believes that God is present in all of creation and God is the common link between all of us, the basis of all creation. God or Atman is present in all of creation. Now, what's the benefit of living the Bharatiya culture? In the chapter Truth to Truth in the Sathya Sai Vahini, which was originally referred to by Bhagawan as the Bharatiya Paramartha Vahini, Bhagawan says that somebody who follows the Bharatiya culture like the Rishis did, a characteristic of them is that they are always immersed in infinite bliss, in Ananda, what is referred to as Brahmananda, the highest form of bliss. And this is a bliss which transcends suffering, it transcends joy. So, the normal cycle of happiness and sorrow, gain and loss, appointment and disappointment, victory and loss. So it is beyond all of that, because see, the very universe, Bhagavan says that the very nature of creation is anityam, asukham, lokam. The creation is anityam. It is transient, it's not permanent. It's asukham. It's filled with suffering. And that's the nature of this loka, or this creation. Now, there's one of our brothers, I remember, who said this very beautifully. He said, imagine that there's a gated community which is named Anityam, Asukham, Lokam gated community. Now you live in that. How can you expect to have permanent bliss? How can you expect, even realistically, to avoid suffering? But that's the nature of the world. But the problem is only if we link our inner state of happiness to the loka. Because the loka has ups and downs, pleasure is an interval between two pains, pain is an interval between two pleasures. What the Bharatiya culture teaches us is to reach a state of mind which is blissful, which is beyond this inevitable cycle of pain and pleasure, gain and loss, appointment and disappointment, victory and defeat, to transcend beyond that. That's what the Bharatiya culture teaches us. And once somebody makes that a way of life, like the rishis of yore in India, Bharatiya culture did, they are ever immersed in bliss. How is that possible? Bhagawan gives a very simple example. Bhagawan says that imagine my identity is this me, which is this body and this mind. Then my capability to experience joy is limited, because my capability to experience joy, my capacity to experience joy is only dependent on all the so-called good things which happen to me. Yeah. Now imagine Bhagavan says that you think you are two bodies. Then what happens is that the good things which happen to not just you but the other body also is joy for you. So for example, if I define my happiness as something which happens to me only, then my capability or capacity to enjoy happiness or joy, to have a joyful life, is limited to what happens to me only. But imagine I cultivate the capability to define happiness as all the nice things which happen to not just me but people around me. For example, my family. So even if something good doesn't happen to me, something happens to one of my immediate family members, I feel joyful. Now your capacity to your capability to experience joy is more. Now imagine you expand that further and say that not just my immediate family but my extended family. Okay, my cousins and my second cousins and my third cousins, anything good which happens to them, okay, I learn to experience happiness and joy in that also. So your capability to experience joy is even more. Now imagine you expand it further and say, no, not just my extended family, but my friends, okay, people whom I know, anything good which happens to them, I experience joy, which in one of the previous episodes we spoke about as mudita. Even people who are, who are superior to us, who are better placed in life, we are able to rejoice genuinely in their success and their happiness, and we are able to rejoice when good events happen in their life. Then your ability to experience joy expands further. Then imagine you expand it further and say, no, it is it is what happens even to strangers, even to people who possibly I don't like, but something good happens to them. For a moment I'm able to rejoice in that. Then my ability to experience happiness is even more. And thus imagine you get to a state where you say samasta lokaha sukhino bhavantu. Then your ability to experience joy is virtually infinite. And that's why Bhagawan talks about two concepts. Bhagawan talks about the concept of contraction love, and Bhagawan talks about the concept of expansion love. And this is what I think Bhagawan means by expansion love. Expansion love is where you define your happiness not just based on the good experiences you go through, but what happens to everybody in the world. Now the opposite of it, when you also consider pain as not just pain which happens to you, but suffering as suffering which happens to others, there comes a natural urge to serve and say, what can I do to relieve that suffering? Because the pain and suffering that I see outside is actually pain and suffering which I am going through. And that is also what becomes the trigger and which becomes the inspiration to undertake seva activities. So again, if you see the concept of Paraspara Prema we spoke about, that also gets enriched by this particular concept. So Swami says that Bharatiya culture basically tells you that the Atman is present in you and the Atman is present everywhere. Second, it also tells you that your reality is not the body and the mind, because Bhagavan says the moment you say my body, my mind, you say my hand, I'm not the hand. My shirt, I'm not the shirt. My leg, I'm not the leg. My head, I'm not the head. Now you put the head and the ears and the eyes and the trunk and the feet and the hands and all of that together, and you say, when you say my body, I'm not the body. My mind, I'm not the mind. Which means our reality, Bharatiya culture also says that your reality is not the body and the mind. And the reality which is your reality is also the reality of all of creation. And once that, naturally all this starts as an intellectual concept initially. But the more one starts thinking about this concept, the more one starts acting in one's life based on this belief, tries to translate this belief into actual action, it becomes a living experience, it becomes a reality. And that is why, if you see, the Bharatiya culture speaks about this excellent method of converting learning into actual experiences, which is Shravana, Manana, Nitidhyasana. Shravana is you understand, you're able to repeat the teaching, not even understand, you're able to repeat the teaching. So when Swami says expansion love, when Swami says Paraspara Prema, when Swami says that Atman is your reality, you're not the body, you're not the mind, you are the Atman, you are God, you're a reflection of God, and all of creation is a reflection of God, you're able to repeat that teaching. That is Shravana. You may not at that point of time even understand it, you may not even believe it, doesn't matter. But as you keep thinking about it, ruminating on it, that is Manana. Slowly you get it intellectually. You're able to understand it. You're able to ask questions to yourself and answer doubts on it. And then the third step, Nididhyasana, where it becomes a living reality. Just like you say that, the sun rises, the east is a living reality for you. This becomes a living reality for you. And by Bhagawan's grace, we reach that stage. And once we reach that stage, like the sages, you experience Brahmananda. But does that mean you have to actually wait till that stage to experience Brahmananda? No. You'll find that as we progress on the path, Bhagavan says that you will actually start experiencing the joy, the ananda, which is beyond the duality of pain and pleasure, appointment and disappointment, victory and loss. The moment you go beyond this. Remember, the root cause of all fear is duality. Imagine you believe there's only me, there's no question of fear. Fear arises only when there's more than one. Jealousy arises only when there's more than one. Anger arises only when there's more than one. So, and if only you exist, then there's only joy. So once we get established in the consciousness that my reality is beyond the body and the mind, and that is the reality of everybody, and we are all one, the larger consciousness, expansion love, once that becomes a reality. And even as we progress towards this, we start experiencing joy. Just like even before the sun fully rises, in the pre-dawn hours, you're still able to see the light. The early signs of joy become a part of our life, and our quality of life improves. We live more joyfully. And that is the great promise that living the Bharatiya culture holds for us. And that's what Bhagawan teaches us. By Bhagawan's grace, we'll explore more facets and the inexhaustible glory and beauty of the Bharatiya culture in the episodes to come. Jai Sai Ram.